Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Christopher Lewis, which we've been trying to schedule this now, probably maybe a few weeks to a month.
I think so.
Yeah. So Christopher is an international dating relationship advisor based in Los Angeles who coaches individuals in the art of navigating their way, to successful relationship. He has helped thousands of people through his talks, interviews, and his highly acclaimed relationship podcast and blog, Dating Intelligence. First of all, Christopher, again, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I am great, Will. Thank you so much for having me on board and talking to you and your audience.
No, it's my pleasure. So, Christopher, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to become a dating relationship advisor? What was that journey like for Christopher Lewis?
Okay, so this journey's happened since I've been a kid, Will. Like I tell everyone in my little profile, I tell everyone, I said that I grew up with all women in the household. My mom and dad were divorced when I was probably about 8 years old. So I had an older sister and a younger sister and my mom. So imagine three women in the house and a guy being the middle child, having to adapt to all these different kind of, characteristics of different personalities and things like that as well. I learned how to adapt quickly. I learned how to listen well. I learned how to communicate. And the biggest thing I learned how to watch was the biggest thing. And so I always tell people I felt like I was Jane Goodall in the jungle looking at gorillas, basically is what it was. I was observing them, right? And so I got better at it over the years. And then finally, all through the time of when I was dating, when I was younger, all the way through now, I just started becoming like a part of me and learning how to really be out there in the space, really learn how to read people, learn how to listen, and learn how to adapt to different scenarios, because it always is about adapting and in relationships, correct?
Right. No, 100%. And today's is a good topic is staying in your dating lane. And it's funny because I remember, reading your bio and things like that. And I remember, when staying in your dating lane, I remember hanging out with friends when we were younger and we would see these women that were like, in our estimation, nine and tens. And we were like, man, they seem like out of our league. So is that pretty much what you tell clients or maybe in your talks on your podcast, Dating Intelligence, stay in your dating lane? What's the interpretation from Christopher Lewis?
So you're right. You hit the nail on the head on that one. Basically, for me, I tell people, I go, everyone has a lane they should stay in. Everyone has their balance of what is correct and right for them. Now, you could be let's say a 3 and still meet a 10 and still have that perfect balance, but it also requires a lot of something inside of that person. Maybe it's charisma, maybe it's just confidence, all these things that happen in that level. But then we also know the other half where people see someone and they're definitely out of their range, but they still go up to that person and approach them, which might not be the right fit for them. That's virtually what it is. Really staying in your dating lane is really finding that right fit for you and learning how to, make sure that you both are equal partners in this relationship.
So it's possible that the woman could be a 7 or 8 or 9 and the guy could be 4 or 5, but there's something that draws them together. So that's a possibility.
That is correct.
Okay. So because I'm telling you, when I was younger, and I remember a good friend of mine, like he would see, and he's a white gentleman, and he would see these women that were blonde, and they were like the Pamela Anderson
Yes.
of our neighborhood. And no offense to him, but he was a little, he's about 5'10", 5'11", but he weighed like about 275 pounds.
Okay.
So we, in our mind, we were like, well, dude, you got to stay in that lane, your lane. So talk more about that, because is it high expectations for men that they're trying to achieve getting because every man, I think when they're younger, 18, 19, 20, 21, they'll always want to date, as they call it, the baddie.
Yes.
Are men, or some men, let's put it that way, some men just are not realizing that it's possible that it won't happen? Does my question make sense?
Yes, and I like how you said the ending part of this. It's like, are some men realizing it's possibly not going to happen? So,
Right.
But then there's a flip side where, like, for instance, one of my best friends, like this, she's 5'10", she's gorgeous. And then this guy that she dated for probably about a year and a half was no more than maybe 5'6". But the first time she saw him, she's like, then, she even said the story. She goes, this guy was never my type. But what made him exciting for her, and what actually got him to start dating her, was the fact when she first met him, she goes, you're not my type. He goes, yeah, well, we'll see about that. But there was this confidence behind them that actually preceded everything else about the guy. And so now this guy is now dating this girl for more than a year and a half, where people are like, I don't get it, but it worked because of his confidence behind it. So the other flip side of that, Will, is like, obviously, and you said something at the beginning of this question you were asking me, is that all guys, we're all visual. Guys are visual, right? So when we
Yeah.
see something, we're like, whoa, that's what I want. Now, the problem is that sometimes guys go up to girls without a plan, without any sort of rhyme or reason. They just kind of just go in there like a bull in the china shop, right? They just go in there full blast, boom, boom, excuse me, get out of my way. Hi, hi, how are you, miss? Like that. And they have no plan. Now, some of the guys now on the other flip side of this now, if guys, I'm talking to you now, if you take a moment to really assess what that girl's doing, maybe see what she looks like, maybe get her mannerisms, get her charisma, get her characteristics, now you may have a chance because now you're observing her. Now you're seeing if this girl could actually be a fit for you. Like they're back in the day, I could probably go into a room, and I tell this to all my friends and my current partner right now, she's amazing. I tell anyone, I go, I can go in a room. If you put 10 girls to 20 girls in a room, I know exactly where my lane is every time. It doesn't matter about looks. It doesn't matter about whatever. I usually know my lane because I take a minute to really observe their actions and how they are behaving. And that's the best way to do that. Because, all of us, once again, guys are visual. Girls now, on the flip side, they're not as visual as guys. They're not as physical. They're
Yeah.
more mental. They need a little more time to actually get to know a person before they try to sit there and go, okay, this person's for me. But a guy now, our first thing that we see is always physical, right? So that's the difference now. If you're going to go for the physical, you better be able to back it up with what they're doing and what space they're at the time as well.
Wow, I love that. So you go to a room, and it's funny because sometimes I think of it where I see someone and I say to myself, yeah, I think I can go out with her. But is
Yeah.
it because of the mannerisms that the girl's portraying? Not, yeah, so go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I
It,
don't
it
want,
could be energy. It could be your energy. Like
yeah,
if you've seen someone, like all of a sudden, like, how we all go into a party or a social situation, and all of a sudden we gravitate to people that have like energy. And that's one of the things
yeah,
I teach all of my clients, women and men. I say, look, I go, first of all, when you go in a room and talk to someone, and once again, this is even has nothing to do with dating, right? It could be just
okay.
going into a social setting or a conference, let's say, right? And all of a sudden you kind of gravitate to your group or your person, usually, right? But sometimes, you go up to someone, you talk to, you go, oh, that person is just not, we just don't gel very well. It's all about like energy at the same time. But if you take the time to really walk into a space, take a minute to look around and really observe the room, you'll be able to start feeling that person that you should be connecting to and actually going to talk with at the same time.
So we're going through our gut feeling and a visual
I
feeling at the
hope so,
same
Will.
time.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 it is. And mind you, yes, obviously physical is always going to be the first thing that we do. But
Sure.
like, and I'll give you a good example. One time this is probably about no more than about 3 months ago. I was at the bar, in line getting a drink at some crowded bar here in LA. And basically these three girls were in front of me. They were all tens, by the way. Well, I was just like, my body was like, oh my God. Like I just started shaking and going because their energy was not my energy. And I walked away and I go, I just can't be around this. And so I go to my table and my girlfriend was like, what happened? I go, there's these three girls over there. They're just way too hot. They're just out. Not that they're out of my league. I just said that their energy is not someone that I want to talk to, because it's like, I know what my lane is. I can hit a 10, always a 10 or an 8 or in between that range, that are going to still
Yeah.
be that are going to be like energy, right? But these three girls had nothing to do. She goes, you get back up there and you go and challenge those girls. So I got back in line and I go, you know what? You're right. I'm going to go and challenge myself. So I got in line with them and I knew which one I needed to speak with first out of the three. And then eventually all three of them started talking to me. And it was not, once again, it was just that thing where I knew which one was going to be the alpha and which one was the beta and which one was like, I call it the protector as well. There's always a second
Okay.
in command.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
No, because you have to get through the wall first. There's always going to be a blocker that's going to block a guy from, especially when they're with a group of friends. So the saying is that you always go for the one who's the least amount of, it's going to be the least amount of of the trouble out of the three. And that's the one you actually go to first. And then you work your way through. And that's usually a saying that happens.
So how can you tell though? All right, you said that there was some type of energy that they were showing or
Yes.
having. So if a guy is looking at that, right, or a guy, it's at a local lounge, and he sees a couple of women that he likes, or there's three women in a group of four, because it depending on who you talk to, Christopher. some guys say don't ever approach women in a group because, like you just said, one is going to block, one
Oh
is going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
have the
It's the
attitude.
pack mentality, a pack mentality, and they will all shoot you down pretty quickly. So you have to really know what you're doing before you do that. But
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, no, so that's a good, so that's a great point. So how can a guy crack that wall, if for lack of a better phrase, from me, to approach the woman that he's interested in? Because I seen one not too long ago, I think it was on TikTok or YouTube, I can't remember, where this guy, I think, had a camera and he says, "Oh my God, I find you gorgeous." And then the friend, "Oh, you gotta give her $100, you gotta give her $100." And I'm like, and I'm just looking at this, and the guy says, "Hey, I just wanted to talk to her." Well, give her $100. Give her $100. And the girl wasn't saying anything. It was her
Right,
friend that was doing the
right. Yes,
protecting.
that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Again, so how do you break that wall, though? What, as a guy, how do you gain that confidence? Like you said before, where the guy was 5'6", he goes, "Oh, we'll see about that if I'm not your
Yeah.
type." I
Mhm.
love that because it's he's showing confidence. But
Yes, he does.
again, how does a guy that maybe is attempting to gain that confidence uh go about it without feeling his ego crushed?
So you don't go in like you don't go in too hot. You go in with no agenda. It has to be really genuine. Even though there's an agenda because you want to meet that girl, but
Yeah.
you go in with the more of a genuine attitude, with a more laid back attitude. And I've approached that. I've actually, it's funny you said that because I love doing this. One of my fortes is actually going to groups like that because I know exactly, once again, by observing which one I'm gonna have, who's gonna shield first, right? So that's the one you need to actually talk to first. Like, and just as genuine as possible, say, "Hey, look, I just wanted to come up and say hello to both you ladies." Make sure it's a group kind of situation, never that you're trying to like leapfrog the other one just to get to the other one. So you have to make sure you're going up there to talk to all of them. If there's going to be two girls or three girls, the agenda is that you want to speak to all the girls. If he would have approached that girl on the TikTok saying, "Hey,
Mm.
how are you ladies doing tonight? Hey, you know what? Is there anything I just want to, you make sure that you actually go back and forth. Then that way the general or the blocker will now kind of back off a little bit and kind of be like, okay, this guy's kind of cool. Now they're all letting you in, and there it goes right there. But it's just like cut the eagerness out and play the long game on that one.
I love that. So, be friendly with all three or four
You
girls.
have to,
Yeah.
because or you will never ever, unless, and I don't care how confident a guy is or how whatever he's doing, he's got game, whatever you may call it. You just you have you it's a hierarchy, like you
Right.
said. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
you got to get through the guard before you can get to the queen. So it's like, but you better schmooze the guard first in order to get that far in his first place. That's all I'm saying.
So for a guy to approach it, it's just, just being, like you said, just being friendly, having a conversation. But okay, so you having a conversation with three or four girls there, right? You're being friendly. All of a sudden, they're all talking to you back, but now you want to target that one specific girl that you're attracted to.
Yes.
Like, do you try to, "Hey, can I buy you a drink, or can I buy all four of you a drink?"
You
How
better
do
be
you?
ready to pay
Yeah.
for all of them is what I'm getting at. And the
Okay.
finish off that story that, that I told you about, that bar that I was at when I got back in
Sure.
line. I knew exactly. I like I said, there were three of them. I knew exactly there was the really good looking one, and then like I said, the other two were good looking as well. But I knew who was going to be the security guard, and the
Yeah.
other one is always just the bystander, right? So I'm using it as a joke. So what happened was, now I went back and I said, "Hey," and they all had these tiaras on. I go, "Oh my God!" I go, Can I ask you whose birthday it is?" And right away, sure enough, the security guard goes, "It's my cat's birthday," and I was like, okay, here we go. Like, it was just something just
Mm.
to throw the guy off because and by the way, people, these girls have been hit on so much, probably about 10 times already in that day, where that's the other thing we have to look at as well, that sometimes you need to read the energy that they're just not interested at the point in time. They're going to be guarded and shielded no matter what, because if they're out of 10, like you said, Will, they've
Yeah.
already been hit on by the time they've walked in the door so many times that they're over it already, right? They're done. They're just like, I just want to hang out with my friends or whatever it may be. Now, going back to the story now, she goes, "Oh yeah, it's my cat's birthday." And I was like, "Okay." And I'm saying this to myself. So I go, "Oh, okay. It's your cat's birthday." I go, "Well, that's awesome." I go, "How old's the cat?" I went with it. I went with the story. And then she goes, "Well, da da da." And I said, "Well, can I buy you ladies a drink?" And because I'm gonna, all of a sudden I heard this right here. You know what I heard, which I knew. "Yeah, we'll take 3 shots of 1942." Now, at the time, Will, I had no idea what 1942 was, but
I still don't. And by
okay,
hearing that, I
right.
don't even know what that is. Go
You
ahead.
just
Yeah.
know it sounds expensive when someone reels it off like that. That's all I knew,
Yeah.
right? And so I
Yeah.
said, okay, I go, well, let's see. There's one, two, three, four of us and my girlfriend, and then like two other girls at the table. I go, okay, I need to get 6 shots. Excuse me, bartender, like that. Now the bartender walks by and goes, no, I'll be right there. So all of a sudden I hear the lead girl go, should we do that? Should we do that? Because now they knew that I didn't really care about who they thought, once again, I didn't act like I was caring
Mm.
about who I was talking to, who I was meeting. I'm just trying to be friendly and just start a conversation. So all of a sudden the security guard goes, well, thank you so much, but we have to go. Thank you for being so. And I was like, are you guys sure? You sure don't want anything? Because I'm here to buy. Like, I just want to just say hello and just talk to you guys. I thought you guys seemed like you're awesome. No, we're good. Thank you so much. And now she's being kind.
Mm.
They all walk off. I go, bartender. I go, how much is 1940? He goes, that's like $75 a shot. And once again, if you knew it, and you knew that they did these two guys all the time because it was a test. It was a test to see if these guys knew what it was. Like they'd be like, "Fuck no," excuse my language. I'm like, "I'm not buying
Yeah.
that for you." Or like I said, I looked at her and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll get it." Excuse me, bartender. Like it was nothing. I didn't flinch at all. Now in my head, I was like, "Oh crap, how much is it going to be? How much is it going to be?" But at the same time, I was not going to back down because I was going to prove a point that look, I go, I'm not one of those guys trying to hit in you. I'm just trying to say hello. And so I felt
Right.
like it when they walked away, it literally changed their attitude for that moment moving forward now. And that's something that I try to do when I walk and see any girl. You have to observe and you have to really understand what they've already been through before you even walked up to them to say hello.
So how does the guy go through that though? Especially if they're a novice at the dating game, especially if they're young and the guys are in their early 20s or they don't have enough experience, especially if it's a group setting. Like how
Right.
do you navigate those three or four women? Like what should a guy observe first? And then if he wants to approach, like you said, I love the group approach. I never even thought about it that way, but I think that's a smart way to do it. But how does a guy that might not have the experience approach the group? Like, how should he observe the
Just
women, if the
I
group?
see. Okay, so
Yeah,
first of all, like I said, if you're once again, it's energy, right?
yeah,
Why do people do what they do in the first place? First and foremost, when you meet someone, it's like being out in the wild. Once again, how do animals attract? There could be like like let's go with the what is it the penguins in Alaska, right?
yeah.
They mate for life, but they have to go through these rituals to find the right mate, and it's rituals or
Mm,
whether it's energy or pheromones out in the wild. It is like energy. And so no matter what you do, first and foremost, you have to be able to just observe what's going on with the girls, first of all, see what their body language are doing. Are they open to meeting new people? And whether that's, let's say, all three of them are no, right? They're not interested, they're not this, they're not that. You could still be genuine and go up to them and say, hey, ladies, I just see you guys having a good time. I want to just kind of see what's going on and say hi. That's the best way to do that, right? So it
okay.
it disarms them. It takes them away from you just leapfrogging the other two and saying, "Hey, babe, how's it going?" And like right, you know what I mean? Like right, you
Yeah,
go right for the kill on the hot one or the one that you're trying to approach, and because you're going to get shut down. So
yeah.
you have to really, really take your time. You have to be patient, and quite frankly, you have to not just jump in for the end game because it's once again you have to really, really just go through the process. And so for a novice, what I'm saying, it's like just be genuine, just go up and say hello to all of them. And
Right.
make sure you give eye contact to each one of them. You speak to all of them as a group, and just be like when someone says something to, oh, now what about you? Oh my God, and you're looking like this, but you want to include all of them to make sure that they all feel comfortable with you first of all. And then the girls at this point in time or guys at this point in time will say, oh my God, like by the way, my friend thinks you're so cute or something, and it can swing that way after a while. But you have to
Right.
go in if you're going to approach all three. You need to really learn how to be patient and really learn how to be really genuine with the process.
Okay. No, no. That it's funny that you say that because I don't think a lot of guys do it that way. Even older gentlemen, they shoot for the second one in the group from left to right, and then the other three are left. Are like, hey, who the hell is this guy? No, you can't talk to. No, she already has a boyfriend. Things like
Yeah,
that.
right.
So, Christopher, one of the things that I find fascinating, and especially in today's dating strategy in 2025, standards. right? Women have, a 30-point checklist. Now guys are coming up with their own checklist and things like that. What are you seeing in the dating atmosphere now in 2025? It seems like the men and women are in competition with each other. It doesn't seem like they're looking to get together as a couple, but it seems like more of a competition. Did my question make any sense at all?
I think so. And the best way I can answer this is that I don't feel it's a competition first and foremost. What I do find is that it's become more difficult for people to meet each other out in the space. Now, outside of dating apps,
Is it because of
outside
social media
it,
and
and
things like
it,
that?
it
Yeah.
is because people are just they just don't know how to talk to each other anymore. They just don't
Mm,
know how to just have a conversation. It's so it's easier for people to have a conversation when obviously texting or when they're on their social media or meeting someone on a dating app, let's say, right? But then
okay.
once you meet, let's say these two people meet on a dating app, we'll go up that route, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, okay, we like each other, we're going to go on a date or we're going to meet up. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'll say about 60% of the time, most of the women or most of the guys go, yeah, she just wasn't the same as they were when
Mm,
I talked to them on, through texting or when we talked on the phone. Because
right.
now that they're meeting in person, the person now is maybe a little bit more, obviously they're nervous because everyone's gonna be nervous meeting in person, but
Sure.
they just don't know how to convey that same energy and that confidence that they had holding their phone or on video maybe, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. And two of the things that you're looking for, like I said, that's why for me it's like I promote matchmakers a little bit more than dating apps, just because I feel like if you're going to go that route, you might as well have someone kind of be the middleman for you and bringing two people together that are going to be right for you. But I
Yeah.
also really, really wish and love that people will just go out again and meet in social settings, whether you be at a party or social event, whatever it may be. It's still the best way to meet someone because that's where you're getting your training ground. That's where you're getting your experience. And that's quite frankly, you get to feel that energy because it's like you're right in front of that person.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a couple of friends that are in their 20s, these young women, and I always say, go to, why don't you guys do speed dating?
Mhm,
It's
right.
it's a 5 minute
By the
thing.
way, that's making a big comeback, by the way, too.
Oh, because I used
Mhm.
to go like before COVID, and I
Okay.
haven't gone. But you know what, Christopher, I always had a great time. Even if I didn't meet anyone or I wasn't chosen, I always had a great time
That's
because
great.
5 minutes I just was myself. I just talked. I made them laugh, or even at times, Christopher, which you wasn't supposed to do. You're supposed to write down, what person you were interested in, and then
Oh,
hand it
right.
to the organizer. Christopher,
Okay.
on a couple of occasions, I said, you know what? I know I'm supposed to do this, but I'm going to pick you. I'm just going to let you know I'm going to pick you. And if you're
Okay.
not interested, no hard feelings, and that's it. But it worked on a couple of occasions, Christopher, because I was direct. I said, listen, I'm going to pick you. I'm interested. I definitely want to get to know you. And I just feel that everything is through apps and texting and,
Yeah.
even phone calls. That's like a dying art, in my opinion. Nobody gets on the
Right.
phone that much anymore. Um, Again, so how do we again get out, especially the phone call? Um, I love talking to somebody because I can hear their voice, whether they're happy, they're sad, they're pissed off at
Yeah.
me or whatever. And it
Right.
seems everything is just through text now.
Right. And also I think what you're going to finish on saying on, so how do we move forward with that? Because I
Yeah.
also you have to remember this on dating apps, which I do actually coach a lot of my dating women, female clients on, is that remember when you're on an app and you feel like sometimes like, well, I was talking to this guy and he all of a sudden he didn't respond the next day and we didn't respond to each other. And I go, well, you have to remember on dating apps, you have about some guys have like 3 or 4 or 5 girls on the hook that they're talking to at the same time. And what they're doing, they're
Mhm.
trying to filter out who might be the best fit for them in that moment, or whether it be who's going to be the easiest one, who's going to be this or who's going to be that. It just kind of like, it's a numbers game at this point. And I feel
Right.
like, just communicating. I love the fact when you go to the speed dating thing that you're just being yourself with no agenda. You're like, look, I'm here. I'm just want to have fun. That's where I feel like it makes people more comfortable because you're more comfortable. And I love the fact that you're also being direct at the same time, Will, as well. You're like, you know what? I've already met 5 girls. I think, you seem amazing. I'm taking a chance. What do you think about this? I like the
Right.
directness approach from that.
Yeah, and I tell some of my friends, go to speed dating, go to networking events, because and networking events, whether it's like-minded people are there, if you're into business, into hiking, whatever it is, go to these things. But it just seems too many people or a lot of people are relying on texting and social media.
Yeah.
And I just feel that the art of communicating, slowly but surely disintegrating just a little at a time because nobody wants to, nobody wants to nobody wants to get rejected, I guess,
No, and
especially
of
on the guy
course.
side. Yeah, go ahead, Christopher. Yeah, go
But
ahead.
we've been getting rejected our whole lives. Well, I mean, from like day one, right? Since we were born, we're getting rejected at some point in time. And but you got to get used to that. That's part of the growth, though. Like it's like that's part of, like when I tell a lot of my clients, I say, look, I go, you need to sometimes go through your own process. I can tell you whatever I'm going to tell you, and you can say you're listening to me. But some
Yeah,
people they just cycle out and they wonder why it's not working, why it's working. We go, didn't we just talk about this 3 months ago? But
yeah,
then I always say that you have to go through your own process until it knocks you over the head on your own. That's
yeah,
when you start really learning how to grow. That's where your growth is, right? So we all have to. That's why for me, it's like I don't think anyone in their 20s should ever have a dating coach, honestly, because they haven't done any dating enough in their lives to even know what they're truly looking
mm,
for. And I'm not going to say that a special someone in their early 20s gets married, they last forever. That's a
right.
different sort of relationship that I can talk to you about another day. But people who are physically dating and looking into to find that perfect person, you have to have that experience level behind you, because even if you're a novice, like you said, someone who doesn't have much experience at all, they find their person. That doesn't mean that you have the experiences to go moving forward in a relationship as well, because you haven't
Right.
had bad times, you haven't had all the great times, and so you're still learning. And hopefully, your partner that you're with, you can go through that with them together. Otherwise, it's going to be a failed marriage or relationship, no matter what.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. Well, first of all, Christopher, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I could probably talk to you for another hour.
Oh,
And
thank you.
before I let you go, anything else you want to promote? You can talk about your podcast, any books you got coming up, because you have at least 4 or 5 books in
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Any TEDx talks? Because you got one in the
Thanks,
future.
Will. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, you guys, please check out Dating Intelligence. That's my podcast. You can find that at dating-intelligence.com. That's dating with the hyphen intelligence.com. And I just started a new company called Mentality, MEN.tality. The website's Dating Mentality. It's for guys in their 40s and 50s. If you're listening out there and you're really trying to find a match, think of me as a referral-based company that I actually find women for you through matchmakers. So think of me as a broker. Like I have, like I'm dealing with all the matchmakers around the world, and they have
Yeah.
all these amazing women. So guys, if you're willing to date, you're of your own age, no later than 10 years, if you're 40s and 50s and want to date someone no less than 10 years old, please go to datingmentality.com and sign up for that membership, because it's doing really, really well and it's starting to hit.
No, it sounds good. I'll definitely put that in the show notes. Well, anything else, Christopher? One last word before I let you go?
Yes. For all your audience out there, if you are dating or in a relationship, just remember it's about listening and communicating. And also, the biggest thing I tell people, Will, if you want to ask someone a question, it's make sure you ask questions, because all you get from that question is either a yes or a no. That's all that can happen. Most people are afraid to ask the questions in a relationship, and all of a sudden, years go by or time goes by, and they're just like things that start failing through their lines of communication is for that reason, because no one's asking the questions anymore.
That sounds good. Well, again, Christopher, thank you so much for being on People
You're
on Dating
welcome.
and taking time out of your busy schedule. Much, much appreciated.
Thank you, Will, and thank you for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. Bye bye.